Hello everyone, Ron here from RJJ's Reactions, and this video is a little different. It isn't going to be a music video or a music reaction video. I'm actually sort of informing myself and informing others about Anzac Day. I'm sure I've heard this before and heard of it before and then sort of left my memory because it's a kind of remembrance day for Australia, New Zealand, and others. And one of the viewers mentioned that it was coming up very soon and suggested a song as well by Redgum. I Was Only 19. I have prepared my reaction to that and I will be posting it on April 25th, which is Anzac Day. And hopefully I get it up at the right time because Australia is a day ahead of us approximately here in Canada. I'm in Canada. I'm in Ontario, Canada, because we have different time zones, as does Australia, I believe. At any rate, enough of that. I wanted to look at what is Anzac Day and learn a little bit more about it for myself, and also maybe provide information for those, particularly those outside of Australia and New Zealand, who might not have ever heard of it or have kind of heard of it but don't really know too much about it. And I also wanted to sort of prepare people for my reaction to the song. I'm as with as a lot of people do, war is a challenging thing, and although you want to be proud of your war heroes and the people who've put their lives on the line, there's a downside, obviously, and we don't want young people being killed all the time, or anybody for that matter. You might not like my reaction to the song. Fair warning. I think I'm fair, but nevertheless, fair warning, if you don't want to hear any negative comments about war, it might be best not to watch that one. Let's have a look at some information about Anzac Day for this particular preliminary video, let's say. Okay, I'm not going to make my screen with me in it any bigger. You don't really need to see me, I don't think, anyway. And I want to be able to read what's on here. So this is from the Australian War Memorial. I looked up a few different sites, and this seemed to have some good information. I haven't read it all, but I glanced through, and so I think I'll go through this one. History of Anzac Day. The Anzac Day tradition. What is Anzac Day? Anzac Day, 25th April, is one of Australia's most important national occasions. It marks the anniversary of the first major military action fought by Australian and New Zealand forces during the First World War. All right, whoops. That went faster than I thought. What does Anzac stand for? Anzac stands for Australian and New Zealand Army Corps. So that makes sense, obviously, when you see it like that. The soldiers in those forces quickly became known as Anzacs, and the pride they took in that name endures to this day. Very good. I'm just looking to scroll here. Oh, it goes really fast. Why is this day special to Australians? When war broke out in 1914, Australia had been a federated nation for only 13 years, and its government was eager to establish a reputation among the nations of the world. When Britain declared war in August 1914, Australia was automatically placed on the side of the Commonwealth, well, like Canada. In 1915, Australian and New Zealand soldiers formed part of the expedition that set out to capture the Gallipoli Peninsula in order to open the Dardanelles to the Allied navies. The ultimate objective was to capture Constantinople, now Istanbul, the capital of the Ottoman Empire and ally of Germany. Okay, so that gives us some good historical background of how the Australian and New Zealand armies came together and how the Anzac name was formed. Australia, New Zealand Army Corps. Let me just scroll down a little bit. Museum, okay. It's a good site. I'm just going to go through the main information here. The Australian and New Zealand forces landed on Gallipoli on 25th April, meeting fierce resistance from the Ottoman Turkish defenders. What had been planned as a bold stroke to knock Turkey out of the war quickly became a stalemate, and the campaign dragged on for 8 months. Yikes. At the end of 1915, the Allied forces were evacuated from the peninsula, with both sides having suffered heavy casualties and endured great hardships. More than 8,000 Australian soldiers had died in the campaign. Gallipoli had a profound impact on Australians at home, and 25th April soon became the day on which Australians remembered the sacrifice of those who died in the war. Yeah, that's a lot of people, particularly that early on. 1914. Although the Gallipoli campaign failed in its military objectives, the actions of Australian and New Zealand forces during the campaign left a powerful legacy. What became known as the Anzac legend became an important part of the identity of both nations, shaping the ways in which they viewed both their past and their future. Okay, I'm trying to scroll here. Early commemorations. In 1916, the first Anzac Day commemorations were held on 25th April. The day was marked by a wide variety of ceremonies and services across Australia, a march through London, and a sports day in the Australian camp in Egypt. In London, more than 2,000 Australian and New Zealand troops marched through the streets. A London newspaper headline dubbed them the Knights of Gallipoli. Marches were held all over Australia. In the Sydney March, convoys of cars carried soldiers wounded on Gallipoli and their nurses. For the remaining years of the war, Anzac Day was used as an occasion for patriotic rallies and recruiting campaigns, and parades of serving members of the AIF were held in most cities. Yeah, so some of the legends you'll hear. The song is more about Vietnam War, but you'll hear a little bit about the legends there too. Good. Can be good and bad at the same time. During the 1920s, Anzac Day became established as a national day of commemoration for the more than 60,000 Australians who had died during the war. In 1927, for the first time, every state observed some form of public holiday on Anzac Day. By the mid-1930s, all the rituals we now associate with the day, dawn vigils, marches, memorial services, reunions, two-up games, were firmly established as part of Anzac Day culture. Later, Anzac Day also served to commemorate the lives of Australians who died in the Second World War, and in subsequent years, the meaning of the day has been further broadened to include those who lost their lives in all the military and peacekeeping operations in which Australia has been involved. So basically just an overall Remembrance Day. Anzac Day was first commemorated at the memorial in 1942. At the time, government orders prohibited large public gatherings in case of a Japanese air attack, so it was a small occasion with neither a march nor a memorial service. Since then, Anzac Day has been commemorated at the memorial every year. And I'm assuming that's the picture of the memorial, 1971. Okay. Not a picture, it looks like a painting or something. What does it mean today? Australians recognize 25th April as a day of national remembrance, which takes two forms. Commemorative services are held across the nation at dawn, the time of the original landing, while later in the day, former servicemen and servicewomen meet to take part in marches through the country's major cities and in many smaller centers. Commemorative ceremonies are more formal and are held at war memorials around the country. In these ways, Anzac Day is a time at which Australians reflect on the many different meanings of the war. And I think I'll stop there. There's a little bit more, there's more information below, but that gives us, outside of Australia and New Zealand especially, a little bit of a concept of what it all is. What does Anzac mean? And what do Australians and New Zealanders and others do on that particular day to recognize it? I noticed when I first pulled this site up, it came up with a little message about, sorry, hope that's not too loud, about Aboriginal people, I believe it said. There are issues around war, there are issues around the Commonwealth, there are issues around all of these things, and fortunately we're at least looking at them now. What the solutions are and where you stand on all of these things, I'll leave that up to you, and it's complicated, and I'm not sure exactly where I stand on all of these things either. It's not easy, but we want to recognize that that's the problem with war. That's the problem that's eternal, I guess, since humanity at least, and probably before that, when we were running around in the jungle. I think we've come a long way, but we've got a long way to go. And I mentioned that in the song, so I won't get into that here too much. But we want to recognize the original people of the countries. Want to recognize the people who stood up, put their lives in danger to protect freedoms or to protect the rights of people or to protect a nation, for example, because these people, at least I think for the most part, these people did it for the right reasons. Now, some of the leaders, I'm not so sure, so I'm not sure where to go with that. But and the overall, the humanity, and do we have to keep sending our young people in to be killed? I want us to get out of that too. But not that doesn't take away from the respect of the people who have tried to do the right thing and who have tried to move forward and find peace. And as I say, they are celebrating not only the wars but also what Australians, New Zealanders, and others have done during peacetime to try to keep the peace. And we have peacekeepers in Canada as well. And so that's a worthwhile endeavor, trying to figure out ways uh, to keep the peace rather than to go to another war. So respect, and also respect to our Australian and New Zealand friends, but on this particular day, but also cautionary tale about war, and that it isn't all glory and wonderful and amazing and romantic, that it is death and destruction and blood, and it is not something to be celebrated itself. So celebrate the people who were worthy and willing and good people, uh, but not our inability to find peace. So I hope that one day we will find peace and that people will work toward that. All right, that's it for me. I could go on and on, but that would be a big mistake probably because I ramble too much and will get myself into even more dangerous territories probably. um, but this is just preliminary. I'm going to put it up before Anzac Day. The music video, reaction music video. I can't get my words right. Will come out on that day. Just wanted to give a little bit of information, and I wanted to learn a little bit more myself. I'll probably look into it further afterwards too. All right, it's Ron from RJJ's Reactions. I know this is a bit different video, but I hope that it's informative. I hope some people will watch it and learn a little bit from it, and then watch the music video later, and you'll see what I mean. All right, keep listening, keep having fun, keep thinking about how we can make things better in this world. Bye bye for now.